is we'll move on to our next one. And we have, speaking of AT officers, we have the fantastic Trevor Boland here with us. I'm sure you all very familiar with Trevor Boland. I think it's a name synonymous with AT in Ireland these days. So I'll just ask Trevor to come on here now and give you a little presentation about a fantastic framework that he has come up with then. After that, we'll have our very own Lakeem Brennan giving some information about how to use the built-in Microsoft apps. So, Trevor, if you want to take it away from us
Brilliant.
there.
That's okay. So, Laine, are you okay if I go first?
Yeah, no bother.
You're okay? Perfect. So what I'll do is share my screen. So just give me one moment. So is that visible to everyone that's coming through?
Yeah, all good.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. First of all, can I just say it's fantastic to be here. It's amazing just to be part, as usual, of a great AT community that's thriving and growing in Ireland. And a big thanks to Ahead as well for facilitating this community as well today, because it's great because there's a big need for AT, and the evidence is here that, that people are gathering to talk about this. So that's amazing. So I have to say I'm quite nervous and delighted and excited to talk about this, because the 88 that I'm going to present is about something really a synopsis of my own learning experiences as an assistive technology officer. Because over my time as being an AT officer and supporting students and even supporting staff around that knowledge of assistive technology, I have noticed that sometimes there can be maybe an expectation or communication gap around AT, because for me, sometimes I note that there's stages or steps involved in the acquisition and understanding of assistive technology, and that may not always be apparent. So I was kind of thinking from a practice-based point of view to come up with some way of describing these stages of assistive technology, like acquisition and mastery, to help people. So from that, these 8 A's came about, and really it's about sharing these 88s with the community, so we can all, hopefully, when communicating assistive technology to our work colleagues or even family or friends or students, that these kind of hopefully resonate with people when it comes to understanding really the complexity and the simplicity of assistive technology and how to bring it, embed it into our own lives. So I'll start off with the first one. And I think one of the key ones is about awareness, because I've noticed in the 10 years that I've worked in assistive technology that AT is still a new concept to so many people. For some reason, assistive technology just hasn't seemed to kind of penetrate or get out into this mainstream culture. So it's still a little bit siloed, far less siloed than 10 years ago, thankfully. But there are still opportunities and needs to draw more attention to AT. So are we seeing AT mentioned in social media, in TV, even in newspapers, if people still read newspapers? But like essentially AT awareness is still needed, and having these communities like this today is essential in reminding ourselves about the possibilities of AT, but those people are stakeholders that we work with, especially students, about that and embedding it into the student culture. And then the second one, and again, from my own experiences, encouraging people to be adventurous about assistive technology, because sometimes people have perceived barriers that may be real or not real about being adventurous with technology. There can be a preconception maybe that you have to be very tech savvy in order to use assistive technology. And sometimes that's not the case, hopefully, because tools are becoming easier to use. So the interfaces are being designed better. They're slowly becoming more intuitive, and we see that with lots of technologies that are out there. So, and then because technology is out there, so available to us now and part of our culture, that assistive technology hopefully is far more reachable if we just be brave and explore assistive technology. And then the next one, just about accumulating that knowledge that we're gathering, because sometimes people are even afraid just to like Google assistive technology. And if they do begin that adventure, of looking into assistive technology and how to gather these ideas that we can kind of get or collate together, that sometimes even like looking as simply as into the head website and the AT Hive within that can be, for a lot of people, a starting place about this exploration of assistive technology, and even taking note of these technologies that you're finding really kind of begins like a process of exploring and testing that AT. And then through that testing of assistive technology, be critical. Like sometimes people feel they have to stick with something, even if it's not a right match. Well, the good thing is because we have so much choice with technology, both free and non-free technologies, that we can be a little bit critical and we can explore and compare technologies. And in that sense, figure out what the best match is. And then from there, from that analysis and being critical and being self-aware of our own needs, we can begin to find that match that is going to like be really critical in helping us to participate equally in whether it's the education experience, the work experience, or just in society. And for this one, accessibility, from working with students, and especially yesterday, I worked with a group of students, and actually students reminded me about, you know, the importance of accessibility. One in particular really resonated with me. This student knew a lot about accessibility and had even done one of the accessibility courses in AHEAD. And it was fantastic hearing her talking about not only her awareness around accessibility, but even the 3 of the students actually in that group knew about that linking between accessibility and assistive technology, and used the example of screen readers that say blind people would use in order to be able to access information with their assistive technologies. So that's why I've recently added and edited this particular AT point, because it's so significant, even from the student point of view. And again, students' voice is a key part of informing these 8 stages of assistive technology. And then the sixth day is about agency. We see great gravity happening with this word agency. And the more I'm indoctrinated into the word or the term, the more power it kind of resonates with me, especially working with students and talking to them and gleaning from their experiences about their needs and desires and wants from not only education environments, but about assistive technology, and how agency, when we see the student voice and we see those choices that students can take in education, and essentially with that voice and choice, we see them growing in responsibility, which is not only a great skill and attitude and behavior to see in an education environment, but for the workplace as well, that they're going to bring agency not only to how they work now, but how they bring that agency to the workplace is going to make them really powerful employees in a, you know, ever-changing workforce as well. So that is going to be amazing to kind of see as this agency is kind of really drawn more attention to. And then like our 7th point, our 7th A is about achieving. So when we start using technology and we embed it into our lives, whether that's our work life, our education life, our personal life, we achieve more. And not only can we achieve more, but we can achieve on a level playing field against and with our peers. So that means that this tool, this technology, our technologies that we're using, is just helping us to not only access the world more effectively, and whatever world that is, the physical or the digital world, but AT is also helping us just to kind of get through daily our challenging tasks and be able to engage in those in an easier way than before without these tools or technologies. So, and then that emotional part as well of achieving is so powerful as well, because ultimately it's about that filling in that need of belonging as well through achieving with assistive technology. And then 8th and the final point, and it was amazing. It was like 2 weeks ago, I kind of put this on Twitter, and that very day, the student who I worked with like a number of years ago on an assistive technology project, I'm to meet her. And through that, I reminded myself, because of her role that she had with me, and she was essentially the person who reminded me that advocating is essential within assistive technology, because students, that student voice is so powerful to get other students talking and chatting and experiencing assistive technology. So that was really powerful for not only me to experience, but having worked with a student who not only used assistive technology and advocated it to her lecturers and her peers by running workshops, just reminding me that we still need, that advocating work by students, to raise that awareness around technology, especially there's so many inclusive technologies out there already. And these assistive technologies, our inclusive technologies, exist in our Microsoft accounts, in our Google accounts, they're different websites on our phones. So that advocating by ourselves and students and workplaces really helps and contributes to that kind of sense of belonging in whatever work environment or study environment we're in. So essentially, these are the amazing steps of assistive technology. These are the 8 milestones that I think, for me, and the students, hopefully, that I've worked with, that this kind of sums up a kind of a map or a guide to helping students realize that, there's much to do when it comes to really figuring out assistive technology, how to be aware of it, how to be brave and explore it, how to gather it and be critical of those technologies that we test, and ultimately find that right match, which is going to allow us to access that environment that we're in. And from there, a greater independence and a sense of achievement is going to happen. And hopefully, then we get advocates. And these advocates can be as simple as just people chatting with their peers and family, or advocates can be something big as, talking in webinars like this, or events like Gather, or even just sharing AT experiences in social media. And I think now is the time when we see it for this voice to grow and develop and form stronger communities about that power of assistive technology. So that's me done. So I would like to wave my flag about assistive technology, and hopefully the AT8s, and hopefully get other people talking about assistive technology and how they can embed it into their practices. So thanks very much for listening, everyone. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer any. And feel free to tweet me. I'm on Twitter, or email me at my DCU account. So it's trevor.boland@dcu.ie, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
That's fantastic, Trevor, and very quick as well. It's such a large and kind of very informative topic. I'm not sure if anyone wants to hop on the mic there and maybe have a little ask a few questions there. We've had a few people just kind of saying, wow, like it's very informative. Someone was saying it's a great way to put the kind of complete AT discovery process into perspective.
Yeah. No, definitely, because I think, and I haven't seen something like this before, where it really kind of sums up, like, even how we might frame that conversation of assistive technology with, like, ourselves, our students, our work colleagues. So essentially, when I talked about this, I was coming up with really a way for me to try and communicate assistive technology more effectively with students, because the unfortunate thing about this, like, post-pandemic environment that we're in, is that, like, I do think one of the traits though is just a slight disengagement culture that's kind of happened. And really, this tool that I kind of created really because I'm noting that this unfortunate disengagement is kind of happening and kind of permeating a little bit into our culture, is that I have to try to re-engage with students and staff about assistive technology or inclusive technology. So this is kind of the way that I think we're going to go forward and frame these discussions, about it, and then hopefully generate a re-engagement with, like, that power of assistive technology and how it can basically contribute to inclusion, really.
Absolutely. That's a great point as well. And it's great that it kind of came about from your own, experience as an AT officer, and kind of, meeting and collaborating with students about their AT. One of the questions we have here is just about that kind of aspect of AT abandonment almost, and kind of about more training being needed so it can be used on a daily basis. What would your kind of thoughts on that be?
Yeah, well, definitely training is a big factor. So that to me sums up a couple of things. Like, sometimes assistive technologies have great training embedded in them. I'm going to try to avoid naming certain technologies. But like, and sometimes, and I've even noticed this from my own experiences, so you can draw attention to the training material in the technology, and that the student can access. And sometimes for various reasons, the student does or doesn't access the training via there. And then even online, YouTube, for example, is an amazing resource about assistive technology. But there are cases, and I definitely would say face-to-face interaction, like, and when I say face-to-face, I either mean in person or online. When I meet my students, like, students still need one-to-one to really embed it. And there's something about the one-to-one that I think will never go when it comes to assistive technology, because, you know, helping students form that relationship with assistive technology and to be guided around how they, I suppose, connect not only with assistive technology as a tool, but they need to kind of connect emotionally with it as well. Like, they need to really resonate with like that potential of technology and to emotionally engage with the technology so they can make that link, that personal link with the tool. And that's going to form not only this intrinsic link and hopefully habit with technology, but even, like, you know, for a lifelong journey with assistive technology, is going to help promote and really generate energy for that relationship for not only the short term, but the long term as well. So whatever relationship you can generate with students to be enthusiastic, to be engaging, is essential, especially in this post-pandemic world. We really need more energy in this area of assistive technology, I think. Okay.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. We have a hand up here, Lakey, and I'm not sure if you want to come in.
Yeah, I just wanted to put my hand up to indicate that it's a question for Trevor. So Trevor, brilliant presentation to start with. And when I remember when we were talking about assistive technology a couple of months ago now, but you were mentioning that Glean, the software that William Nolan has just demonstrated, can also be used in practice sessions, like while watching the television or watching or listening to a podcast, and how that can help kind of embed the technology into your life. So I guess my question is about how do you envision, or do you envision encouraging students who use assistive technology to progress through the 8 steps and to embrace it as a part of life in general, as opposed to a part of their studies?
Yeah.
If that's a fair question.
Well, that is a great question. And that's one I'm going to be exploring with a student group we have here. So I don't have all the answers to that question, but what I'm hoping and what I think I might have some of the answers to is by kind of getting student AT advocates. And like, that student voice is so strong. And from the students who I'm engaging with, like, there's 3 potentially who are going to, like, help me be co-collaborators in this, I suppose, quest to get more attention about inclusive and assistive technology. And from there, I think that place of the 88 is going to help people figure out that map or that journey that can be taken when it comes to assistive technology. So really, I'm kind of at the beginning of that exploration, and it's kind of exciting, but at the same time, I'm trying to be flexible and look at the 88 and have that student voice kind of evolve that 88 as well. Because even one of the A's, accessibility, wasn't apparent last week, but from the evolving conversation with students, I'm realizing I need to be flexible and change it. And it has to reflect their voice. So yeah, so I don't know. Next year, I can be able to answer that question more fully. This year, I'm not so good at answering it. Okay.
Well, it's wonderful to hear about the plans for going forward with it. I think it has great potential.
Okay, and actually, I'm seeing Shirley, Tracy, just mentioning something about secondary school. Well, like, I can hopefully, like, if a secondary school teacher is looking for an assistive technology officer role full-time, no, I'm not. I'm very happy in DCU. So yeah, there is hopefully. Well, the thing is, and even from talking to people, like, there's nothing to stop people using the 88, the framework, or that map, or that guide around the acquisition and that embedding of AT. But I see the point that there is probably greater need for AT across equally across all levels of education. Having been an SNA, it's a little bit a long time ago now, unfortunately, maybe a decade or two since I've been an SA or SNA. But like, yeah, like luckily things are changing, but very slowly. But yeah, there is greater need, and that's why I think even groups like is it CESI, that Computer in Education Schools Ireland, they've been very good about allowing that voice of assistive technology within their session. So it's great, like ahead and gather, amazing, fantastic. And we want to see that same voice about assistive technology in other events and kind of create those ripples that are hopefully going to all cross over. So, but no, I totally see your point, Shirley. Yeah, it is a good one.
Absolutely, yeah. And I've just put in the link to the chat there where you can find on the event website, you can download the amazing 88 poster. And I think, Trevor, you were mentioned that it's you've released it under a CC license, so people are okay to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go
Fantastic.
first. Yeah.
Brilliant. And we can where can we find more about the ATA or more about your work, Trevor? Are you on your
Well, that is a good question. So I think on the DCU website, my manager has very kindly allowed me to put a little bit more information. So as soon as basically I have a little bit of time, I'll do that, and then hopefully kind of like show people the evolution of that changing ATA, because it probably is going to change because the student voice is informing it too. Yeah, but like absolutely. Well, I'll tweet us and all that as it evolves. So like if you're a Twitter person, that's great. It's a great place for the AT community to thrive. Otherwise, yeah, I'm happy to chat as well. So if people do want to chat about AT, connect with me. If they want me to talk at an event, that's okay too. I'm exceptionally cheap, even free, to do that. I know, like, basically, I am basically free. So yeah, that's okay.
Well, there you have it, folks.
Yeah, if you want,
thanks a million,
if you like
Trevor.
a freebie, connect with Trevor Boland.
Thanks a million, Trevor. Honestly, really appreciate that. It was a fantastic presentation, and I'm sure the ATA framework is going to be a really great kind of structuring kind of framework for people to move on forward and exploring AT more. So thank you so much for coming and speaking to us today.
Thank you.
And if you have any questions for Trevor, do have a look at the chat box. And now I will welcome our own Lakeem Brennan. And he is going to do some demonstrations, I believe, for the built-in accessibility features in Microsoft Word. So without further ado, Lakeem, I'll hand you over to him now.
Hi, I'm Lakeem Brennan. As Danielle said, I'm working ahead as the student and graduate administrator. Whew, I should have got some water while Trevor was talking, but I was kind of glued to the screen. Anyway, so I'm going to be talking about accessibility features in Microsoft Word. The majority of my presentation will be a demonstration of how to create accessible Word documents. And then at the end, I'm going to show you some tools within Word that you can use once you have a document to read through and understand it well, or how to create documents from scratch with using things like Dictate and in building the accessibility requirements from the beginning. So without further ado, I will read through this slide, which says accessible Word document, and it has a link to the Word document accessibility guidelines on a head. And if you open that link, it goes to the allyship, which is my baby. And it has the accessible COM section and a specific page on Word documents. And in there, you'll see, very similar to this, each of the headings. And you can tick in and it justifies why each particular thing is necessary, how you go about putting it in. And again, it kind of reiterates who it helps when you go about including these measures to make your things more accessible, your documents more accessible, not your things. Whew, can you tell I'm a bit nervous? But anyway, haven't given a presentation to this many people in a while. So I will open up a Word document now, and I will go through each of these steps in turn. So I'll just read out the steps first. The include a table of contents. use structured messaging in plain English, heading styles and consistency, links must be embedded with descriptive labels, images and alternative text, design, font and color choice, and accessibility checker. Now I'm going to stop the share and open up a document which is also close to my heart, which is the How to Tell Employers About Your Disability, a new AHEAD publication, which is being printed this week and is available on the website in the student and graduate section. So there we are. So here we have the How to Tell Employers About Your Disability, a guide to disclosure document. And you're very lucky to get a sneak peek into it, even though I suppose it's on the website, so not so much. Is that actually sharing the correct thing?
Yeah, you're all good.
Oh, okay, good. Because it has the, it still has the PowerPoint open for me on one of the screens, but anyway. So the first thing that I list is to include a table of contents in your document. This document is 20 pages long, and aside from having a brief introduction to AHEAD, Get AHEAD, the WAM program, and a bit of a disclaimer on why we use people with disabilities and disabled people interchangeably, and why we use disclosure in the title, we have our contents. Why we include a table of contents and how, I'll start with why. Why we include a table of contents is for people who, well, first of all, for people who might be reading this document for the second or third time and only want to know about, say, the law, or even within that, they might want to know about the Disability Act. And this can direct them to exactly where they need to go without having to read through the entire document and sort of flick through headings through each page. Another reason the table of contents is very helpful is for students who may have attention span issues, or may be daunted by having to read such a long document. So for them, being able to see, okay, well, section 1 is the most important for me, and then be able to take that piece by piece or break it into a reading list so that they're not expected to read an entire, say, 3 chapters off of a book in one sitting, which might take a few hours. They can then go to the book and say, right, well, chapter 1 has several sections, and I'm going to do the first 4 of them tonight. And then I'll do the last part of chapter 1 tomorrow, and they can split it more reasonably into bite-sized chunks when you include a table of contents. The next one is where I struggle, which is structured messaging in plain English. So basically, when writing any document or email or PowerPoint, having a clear kind of start, middle, and end, or a clear structure to what you're trying to say, can help people to know what to expect, which is good for anxiety, but it can also help people to digest your information and to go back, and similarly with the table of contents, they can go back and revise things which perhaps they didn't understand the first time they read it, or they have a question but they're not really sure where it fits in. It basically helps you be coherent. And if you can't think of how to structure your messaging, you're probably not clear in exactly what you're trying to say. And then plain English is where I struggle. So what I would say about that is that there are lots of online resources, and I'll go to that at the end. One in the Word document accessibility guidelines under the structured messaging in plain English heading. Whew, breathe. Which basically will rate the accessibility of the actual language and the words that you use. And it will say approximately the age of an average reader who would be able to parse your phrasing. And they will also say how long they would have to spend in formal education to understand the words you're using. And if you are writing an academic document or something where you have to use specialized terms, I encourage you to include a glossary at the end of your document, just for ease of use, and for people who are maybe entering the field and don't know all of the acronyms yet, because you don't want acronyms to be something that inhibits someone from understanding. They're meant to make it easier, not less clear. And then the last 5 I'm more comfortable with, because they come from the CAST guidelines on PowerPoint presentations. One thing which I like about Microsoft Office is that often the accessibility features across each of the Office applications are similar, and they have the same icons, so they're easier to find and navigate. And one of the things that I used to form the Accessible Comms PowerPoint guide is from CAST, who are an American accessibility and assistive technology company. And they have an acronym called SLIDE, S-L-I-D-E. And the first one stands for styles. And that means that throughout this document, you'll notice that there are different kind of grades of text. So this is normal text. And then if you click into this and you go home, you'll notice that this is a heading 2, I believe. Yeah. So you can see that grade box there indicating it's a heading 2 text. And when you go through, you'll see that all of the ones that are the same level as heading 2 or the about ahead have the same format exactly. This is because we've labeled them and put them in this style. And this is very important because it enables the document to mark out different sections and to create the word, the table of contents seen below. So without marking things off, it would be much more difficult to create a table of contents because you'd have to manually go through. Whereas having this consistent styling and having this consistent labeling means that basically a lot of your work is automated and it can be accurate, and you can update the table of contents by just clicking on it, and then there'll be like a little exclamation mark update table. I won't update it now because this is actually not including the first couple of pages. And after slides, there's links. So you'll notice that on my PowerPoint, rather than having click here or read more as the link title or the link label, I've embedded the link with a descriptive title. So it says Word Document Accessibility Guidelines from AHEAD. And similarly, if you go through the AHEAD website or any reputable kind of accessible document or email, you'll notice that it's important to label your links so that people know what's going to happen when they click them. This is partially for people who have anxiety, but also for people who use screen readers, because sometimes links are pulled from being in the middle of a sentence to being said separately at the bottom of an email or at the end of an email. And if you have 3 or 4 links in one email, they won't know the difference between click here or click here or click here, because one could be for a Zoom link, one could be for the agenda for a meeting, and one could be for further reading, but they can't differentiate between the 3 because you haven't labeled them as agenda for meeting on 3rd of March, or Zoom link to join meeting on 3rd of March, or further reading on accessible document design for ahead of meeting on 3rd of March. And then last 3 are images and alt text, design, and accessibility checker. So Twitter have recently had a campaign, well, I say recently, in the past few months, have had a campaign on including alternative text. And it's very important when you are using images in your document that you do include alt text for not only people who, primarily for people who use screen readers and won't be able to access the image visually, and we'll need to know what the image is trying to convey, either the context. So it might be an image of a beach because you're talking about your most recent vacation, or it might be a graph, in which case you'll put more details on what the graph is trying to demonstrate, such as there has been a steady increase in the amount of people using assistive technology over time. And what's very important is to know that from a universal design perspective, all the things we're putting in place, the table of contents, the structured messaging, the plain English, the consistent styles, they're great for people with disabilities, and that in and of itself is enough reason to do these things. But from a universal design perspective, it's also helpful for people who might have English as a second or third language, and people who might be reading this and looking at the graph and be a bit lost as to what it's actually trying to convey. And then once you click into the alt text, you can see, oh, so the point of this is to show an increase if they aren't as numerically literate as others. And then design, font, color, and choice. Design is one that we have an entire extra page on. And the main thing that I'll say about it is to choose a font that is legible. There are 2 main things that determine how legible a font is. The first is that it has sans serif. So serif are little embellishments that would have been used in ancient Roman times to mark into where you're going to carve a letter. So Times New Roman has a lot of serifs. There'd be little kind of corners on the top of the T. And sans serif fonts are less embellished, so it's easier to see. And they also need to consider the X height, which is basically when you take the ratio of a capitalized letter to the height of a lowercase x or c or o or s or any kind of short letter, that the short letter takes up more than half of the entire height of the tall capitalized letter. This just makes it easier to read. If you have a small X height, you can make out the bigger letters, so like the capital letters, but the smaller letters become kind of muddled together, and it's harder to see the shapes of words, which is helpful for people with dyslexia. And then finally, the accessibility checker. So this is for creating accessible documents, and then we'll move on to the how to use the accessibility features yourself when creating them. But if you check the accessibility, and you can use this on all Microsoft Office accounts, it will flag various things to you. So thankfully, we can see that there's no accessibility issues with this one. But the things that it checks for are all the alt text, that your navigation pane works, and that there's high enough contrast between the colors that you use for your text and the background. Okay, now I'll go back to the slide shortly, but the last thing I wanted to say is that when you are given a document on Word and you're not quite sure where to begin with reading it, it's helpful to go to the view and go to either read mode or better yet, immersive reader, because it allows you to focus and it allows you to basically cut out distractions. Particularly the immersive reader will read aloud what the document says in your chosen voice. And it will also, I clicked the wrong one, so I'll just escape this. Whoop. That is not cooperating. There we are. You can click immersive reader. And here it can read for you, and you can change the page color. So this is helpful for people who might have visual impairments or find reading on different backgrounds helpful. So that could be people with dyslexia as well. You can also have the line focus so that you don't have to navigate through the page. And finally, you can have everything read aloud. So I don't think I have the sound shared here. Oh. So yeah, I will share the slide again now. So stop the share and share screen. Oh, have to open up the, oh. Okay, there are 5 minutes, so escape. I almost X'd out of the meeting, which wouldn't have done, but I'm going to, here we are, share again the recap on how to make an accessible document. Share. There. So just to recap, when making accessible documents, it's important to include a table of contents, which you can do by pressing Insert on the top ribbon and then scrolling down to Table of Contents. And if you have used headings and styles consistently throughout, you will be automatically given a accurate table of contents. Structured messaging in plain English is very important. I'd encourage people to plan their documents and their emails and such before writing them so that they can ensure that there's kind of a coherent messaging and things are split in a logical fashion, or at the very least include a table of contents so that you can navigate through it well. Headings, styles, and consistency, again, is important. Links must be embedded with descriptive labels. This is for screen reader users predominantly, but also for people who have anxiety. Images and alt text are also important to have large enough, as well as including alternative text to outline the significance of your images. The design, font and color choice is the primary consideration for this, but it's all about making sure that your text itself is legible to the greatest, or readable to the greatest amount of people. And then accessibility checker is the final kind of push, and it will catch any things that you may have missed. But it's important that you do this at the end to kind of evaluate that you have done the considerations that are necessary. Okay, I think that is that done. The next slide is just a thank you and any questions. So I will kill the share.
That was fantastic, Lahin. Thank you so much. That was very, very important. You gave a great overview of kind of the accessibility features, but also why you should use them, and the SLIDE acronym from CAST, I think, is very important. It's one that I always refer back to anyway. So we have maybe 2 minutes. We just had a couple of questions and just a few comments about, you know, It's great to see how many uses the table of contents has. Someone asked what version of Word you would need to have on your laptop, and as far as I'm aware, it's just the most updated version. Accessibility features have been there for a little while. Would you agree, Leighton?
I think so. I remember at a time in the office, we all had different versions of Word. And I think since changing our IT provider, we're all at the most recent version. But one thing which I like about Microsoft in general is that accessibility is a built-in feature in all of their apps and has been for as long as I have been using any computers. So I suppose that's not that long. It's only like 15 years, but anyway.
Absolutely, yeah. So it should be available in all kind of whatever Microsoft Word
version you're using.
Version that you have. Yeah, absolutely.
I remember first using Accessibility Checker, I think in 2007, because I saw it and was wondering what it meant.
Well, there you go. So at least since 2007. And we just have one more, which was how do you add descriptors to a link? And someone's just posted a link to a Microsoft Word, a Microsoft help page, I think it is. But basically in Word, what you do is you have, the name of the thing. Leighton, do you want to?
Yeah, I might actually just share the document again and make a link.
Yeah.
Grant. I'll do that quickly. So,
and you'll notice that
screen.
Zoom doesn't give us the functionality to dress up our links, unfortunately. So apologies.
So say I wanted to do a link here to the online URL. The easiest way to do it is to type out what I'm going to be linking to and what I want the label to be, and then to right click on it and then scroll down to link and then insert link on the bottom. And then here there'll be the text to display on the top, and you just check that's what you want your sentence or label to be. And then you copy and paste the URL here. So I don't have a URL, so I'll just say www.head.ie/allyship, because that's the one I'm most fond of. And then once you open that, you'll see that it is verbatim what you had in the first box, the text display. And then when you open the hyperlink, it will bring you to the link that I was going to show you earlier. And I'll just move that over. Thank you for asking about links, because I forgot entirely to show you this page, which is the accessible comms page, which goes through not only the Word document accessibility guidelines, which is the one that's linked to this slide deck, which has everything I've laid out and more detail. But if you go back to the accessible comms in general, it goes through social media, graphic design, PowerPoint presentations, newsletters, and emails, as well as just a top 10 general tips. So I'd recommend going through here if you have the time and interest.
Fantastic. Yeah, and we've left the link for that in the chat box as well. So thank you so much, Leighton. That was a fantastic presentation.